Young nurse vanished after her night shift in 2001. 23 years later, her ID badge was found inside a patient's pillowcase after disappearance. Hello, my viewers. Welcome to the channel. We are just getting started, and your support means a lot. If you enjoy these stories, please consider subscribing and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for being here. The nurse on morning rotation was the one who found it. She was prepping room 214 for post-mortem sanitation. Standard procedure. The patient had passed sometime between 2 and 4 a.m. No code, no distress, just silence. She turned the pillow over to check for staining, and that's when she felt it. Something stiff. Not stuffing, not cloth. She unzipped the case. Factory seemed still sealed after all these years, and slid her hand inside. Her fingers caught plastic. Cool, sharp at the edges. She pulled it out. An ID badge. Cracked laminate. Faded hospital logo. A photo barely legible through time. A young woman. Dark hair. Slight smile. Eyes tired but kind. Marla Jameson. Nurse technician. Issued, August 2001. She hadn't been seen since the night she vanished. 23 years ago. Room 214 hadn't been used for long stretches over the years. Closed during renovations in 2013. Converted to storage in 2017. Reopened for use just last year. But no one had ever opened that pillow. No one had reason to. Until now. The nurse stood there for a long moment, badge in hand, like she was holding something radioactive. She didn't say anything. Not at first. Just stared at the name. At the face. Then she walked it down to administration. Her hands didn't stop shaking the entire time. They pulled the file the next morning. Thin. Almost insultingly thin. A missing persons report. Filed August 14th, 2001. Time of last contact, 11:47 p.m. Security badge swipe on lower floor. End of shift. She was scheduled to be off the next 3 days. Never came back. No phone activity. No bank withdrawals. No signs of forced exit. Marla had simply disappeared. She lived alone. Rented a small apartment 10 minutes from a hospital. Neighbors said she was quiet, polite, kept to herself. The kind of tenant that plants herbs in her window box. The kind who returns carts at the grocery store. Even in the rain, there were no signs of a struggle at her apartment. Bed was made. Clothes still folded in drawers. One half-drunk glass of orange juice left on the counter. Nothing stolen. Nothing staged. Just absence. Back in 2001, St. Araminta's South Wing hadn't yet installed security cameras in the patient corridors. Budget reasons. They said the wing was low risk. Her last known movement was in the stairwell, caught on a single blurry frame. Descending. Head down. Left hand on the railing. That was the last time anyone ever saw her. Until now. Or at least, until someone found her badge, hidden inside a pillow, in the same wing she vanished from. The same floor. Just 6 rooms down. The patient who'd just died. He was 87. Severe dementia. He barely spoke. Had no family. And he'd only been assigned to room 214 for 4 days. Before that, it sat vacant. Another gap in the timeline. Another echo in a place full of them. The hospital contacted local police. The badge was collected. Tested. No fingerprints. Just trace amounts of old detergent. No DNA. Not even Marla's. It was as if it had been sealed in fabric all this time. Waiting. Someone had to have put it there. But who and when? And more disturbingly, why? The badge wasn't bent. Wasn't worn. It looked as if it had been placed there with care. Almost preservation. Like a relic. Or a warning. No staff had reported the badge missing back in 2001. It wasn't protocol then to log badge returns. When someone disappeared, they were just gone. And a badge wasn't the kind of thing people searched for. Until it showed up. Inside a dead man's pillow. The coroner ruled his death natural. Nothing unusual. But when the nurse came in the next morning to strip the bed, she noticed something else. A second pillow. This one tucked under the first. Almost hidden. Inside it, nothing. But its seams had been tampered with. Restitched recently. By hand. The thread wasn't hospital issue. And the stitching style. Tight, uneven. Matched no staff training standard. It was careful. Private. Done by someone who knew no one would look. Until now. The badge wasn't the only thing hidden in that room. Just the first. And whatever had happened to Marla Jameson that night in 2001, it hadn't stayed buried. It had waited. Right here. Under a stranger's head. For 23 silent years. Waiting to be found. They reopened the case quietly. No press. No family pressuring the department. No crowds. Because there was no one left to ask the hard questions. Marla's parents had passed in 2014. A car accident. She had no siblings. No spouse. No children. No one to post flyers in grocery stores or plead on the evening news. The case had been lost in a drawer. Until the pillow. Until the badge. Detective Isla Varn, who took over in May, had a theory. That whoever put the badge there wanted to be found. Not earlier. Not during renovations. Not during storage. Now. Which meant they were watching. Waiting. Tracking time. And that chilled her more than anything else. She started with the basics. Employee records from 2001. Shift rosters. Maintenance logs. Some were missing. Some never digitized. But names remained. Technicians, night staff, orderlies. Most gone now. Retired. Deceased. Unreachable. But one name returned again and again. In notes and logs. In patient complaints. Raymond Kinsey. Maintenance overnight. No criminal record. No formal reprimands. But in the margins. Incidents. 2 patient families requested he not return to their loved ones' rooms. One nurse noted he had a habit of appearing in places he wasn't assigned. And in August 2001, he was clocked in on the night Marla disappeared, working the south wing, repairing a water pressure fault. According to the records, he entered the sub-basement at 11:39 p.m., left at 12:52 a.m. There were no cameras, no witnesses. And Kinsey, he passed away in 2009. Heart failure. No next of kin. But his employee locker still existed, stored in the hospital's long-term archive. Inside, old tools, rusted flashlight, and something strange. A set of blueprints. Marked up copies of the South Wing's original design. Ink smudged with age. But someone had gone over them. Made changes. In pencil. In the dark margins. Room 214. Circled twice. Beside it, a small handwritten note. Moved piping to create cavity. Room not standard. Detective Varn stared at that note for a long time. Cavity. Behind the walls. Above the ceiling. Under the floor. She called in a structural specialist the next day. They scanned the room. Infrared resonance. Top to bottom. And they found it. A hollow. Roughly 4 feet wide. 12 feet deep. Behind the closet. Accessible only by removing the back panel. Which wasn't designed to open. But Kinsey had made it. A false space. No ventilation. No light. Just a box on the wall. Hidden behind uniforms and spare blankets. They opened it. No human remains. No clothing. No signs of Marla herself. But they did find something else. A cassette tape. Unlabeled. Tucked into a sealed plastic bag. Dust-covered. Still intact. Varn had it cleaned and digitized. What came through was faint. Low audio. Scraping sounds. Shifting. Breathing. Then a voice. Female. Soft. Wavering. 7 words. Is someone still out there with me? Silence. Then the tape clicked off. That was it. No date. No reply. Just her voice. Drifting in the dark. Trapped. Varn played the tape again and again. Each time, she listened for something else. A sound in the background, a name whispered, a second voice. But it was always the same. Scraping. Breath. 7 words. She compared the voice to Marla's recorded hospital voicemail from 2001. And while the quality was poor, the analyst confirmed. 90% vocal match. It was her. And somehow, she'd been in that space. Or near it. After the date she disappeared. Which meant she hadn't died that night. At least, not right away. The hospital quietly closed room 214. Again, no statement. No public notice. Just a single lock on the door. New silver. Shiny against the chipped paint. But Varn kept pushing. Because one question sat like a stone in her chest. Why now? Why 23 years? And who placed the badge? The patient who died days before. He was too frail. Too gone in the mind. He couldn't have unstitched a pillow. Slipped in a laminated card. And resealed it with thread not found in hospital supply. Someone else had been in that room. Or had access to the laundry before it was placed. Or had planted it long ago, waiting for it to resurface, as if to say, she was here. She waited, and we missed it. Varn visited the room alone one night, stood in the closet, pressed her hand to the wall where the hollow had been. It was sealed now, but the shape of it remained, and she imagined it. Marla, maybe injured, maybe taken, breathing into that recorder. 7 words, all she could manage. Hoping it would outlast her. And somehow, it did. Varn stepped back, turned off her flashlight, and for just a second, she thought she heard something move inside the wall. A faint scrape, like breath, against wood. But when she flicked the light back on, there was only silence, and the echo of what had once been a place of care. Now just a room that remembered her. They exhumed Marla's case piece by piece. Not just the badge, not just the tape, but everything that hadn't made it into the file the first time. Things discarded, overlooked. Nurses' handwritten schedules from the summer of 2001. Old shift logs printed on fading matrix paper. Even forgotten reports from night supervisors, some of whom had never been interviewed. It was in one of these reports, dated 2 nights before Marla vanished, that Varn found something. Just a scribbled note. In the margin of a patient incident form. RN Jameson requested transfer from night shift. Feels unsafe in South Wing. Said someone's watching me. It had never been followed up. Never mentioned. The supervisor who'd written it, Lydia Moret, had retired in 2006. They tracked her down to a nursing home in Missouri. Varn called her, not expecting much. But the moment she mentioned Marla's name, the line went quiet. Then Moret said, I told them she was scared. No one cared. They told me to keep the schedule tight, that she was just tired. Varn asked what Marla meant by someone's watching. Moret hesitated, then whispered. She said he was inside the walls. Marla had worked in the South Wing for less than 5 months. She was hired late March of 2001. Bright, competent, well-liked by patients. But sometime in July, her notes became erratic. Supervisors flagged her for missed check-ins. Nurses remembered her looking pale, withdrawn. One of them, Claire Pendry, still worked at the hospital. She remembered a specific night, August 7th, when she'd walked in on Marla crying in the staff break room. She was holding her hands like she'd burned them, Claire said, but there were no marks. She just kept whispering that something was wrong with the floor in room 210, that it felt hollow. Room 210, for doors down from 214. Varn had the floor plans re-examined. The cavity extended farther than originally thought, beneath 3 adjacent rooms. It wasn't a single hollow. It was a network. Someone had hollowed out the structure, corridor by corridor, closets, vents, and somehow, no one had ever known, or they had known, and didn't care. In August 2001, The South Wing was short-staffed. Budget cuts, rotating temp nurses, one security guard for the entire lower floor. It would have been easy to hide something, to hear things, and have no one believe you. Claire said the last conversation she had with Marla was on August 11th, just before the shift change. Marla pulled her aside in the supply room. She asked me if I'd ever noticed that the walls in 214 didn't echo right, like they absorbed sound, not bounced it, like someone had built something back there. Claire had laughed it off. They both had. But she remembers. Marla didn't laugh back. She just stared at the wall, then whispered, "What if he's not gone? What if he just never leaves?" Claire didn't know who he was. Still doesn't. The cassette tape had been recorded on a standard G handheld, the kind the hospital used for dictation. None were missing from inventory, which meant Marla either had her own, or someone gave it to her, to say goodbye, to record proof, or to leave a breadcrumb. For years, Varn believed it was one of those three, until she had the tape reanalyzed. A forensic audio specialist noticed something strange, a background frequency, barely audible, hidden in the hiss. It wasn't mechanical, wasn't environmental. It was a voice, low, male, repeating a phrase, over and over again. 2 words, "Be still." It chilled her, because it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a rule, or worse, a command. In 2001, there was a patient in room 213, next to where Marla had last been seen. His name was Francis Bell, a retired architect, admitted for late-stage Parkinson's. Records show he was coherent some days, delusional on others. But one thing stood out. In his file, on August 10th, he made a complaint. It wasn't about his care, not about the staff. He simply wrote, on a napkin, in shaky pen, "There's a man in the vent above my bed. He wears hospital shoes." The note had been filed and ignored. Now it was a clue, because when Varn returned to room 213 with a thermal scanner, she found a distortion, a thin air gap behind the vent, accessible only through the crawl space above the ceiling. They opened it. No sign of anyone, no discarded clothes, no fingerprints, but they found indentations. In the dust, shoe prints, hospital-issue soles, size 11, old, but unmistakable. Someone had been up there. Someone had crouched in that dark space, just above a dying man's head, and watched. For how long? No one could say. Back in the evidence lab, the badge was re-examined under UV light. There were faint markings on the back. Not words. Scratches. Random at first glance. But when traced, they formed a pattern. The outline of a room. 214. Drawn from memory. Or from inside. Marla had scratched it herself. A message. A map. Or maybe a cage. Varn stood in room 214 one last time. The hollow had been sealed. The walls reinforced. But the weight hadn't left. She looked at the mirror above the sink. Newly replaced. The last one had cracked. No one knew how. She stepped closer. On the edge of the glass, barely visible beneath the thin layer of cleaning solution, was a fingerprint. Long, delicate, and when run through the system, it came back as inconclusive. No match. Not in hospital records. Not in police databases. But it didn't belong to the patient. Didn't belong to Varn. And didn't belong to anyone. Who was supposed to be in that room? Since 2001. It was recent. Fresh. And placed. On the mirror's surface. From inside. Varn stared at it for a long time. Not moving. Not blinking. And in the silence, she thought of the voice on the tape. The scraping. The breath. The question. Is someone still out there with me? And now, all she could think was, maybe someone still is. They played the tape in a soundproof room. Nothing but a desk, a lamp, and a single speaker. The reel spun slower than expected. Old ribbon. Magnetic strip degraded. It began with silence. Then static. Then a voice. Her voice. Marla Jameson. She sounded calm. Not panicked. Not whispering like before. Just tired. If someone ever finds this, it means I didn't make it out. There's a long pause. Breathing. Then, I've tried every door. Every panel. I can hear the hallway, but no one hears me. I think he made it this way, so the walls listen better than people. Something scratches against the mic. Maybe her hand. Maybe something else. I kept thinking it was a man at first. Someone hiding. Someone broken. But now I'm not sure. Her voice shakes, just a little. He doesn't eat. Doesn't sleep. He watches through vents. Never speaks. Just knocks. Once. Static flares. The tape skips. Then she returns. He moves between rooms like he was built into them. Like this place wants him to stay. Another pause. Then softer. I've seen my reflection twice. Both times, I thought it was someone else looking back. Not me. Not anymore. Silence. Then something taps, faint, hollow. One knock. The tape ends. Detective Varn didn't speak for minutes. She just sat there, listening to the dead air hum through the speaker. The technician rewound it, played it again. This time, she noticed something. In the last few seconds, just under the knock, a mechanical whine. Faint, patterned, almost rhythmic. A technician filtered the sound, matched it to old equipment logs. It was the elevator motor on the south wing's west stairwell, meaning the knock was recorded right next to the elevator shaft at 2:07 a.m., 1 floor below ground level. That wing had no listed sub-basement, no recorded lower level. But the sound didn't lie, and Marla had been there, longer than anyone realized. They scanned beneath the west stairwell. Ground-penetrating radar showed a narrow space, 4 feet wide, 10 feet long, 6 feet high. No entry, no ladder, just a box sealed in concrete, built in 1987, and left off every floor plan since. They drilled for access, pulled back layers of sealed material. Inside, nothing, just a rusted chair, a hospital blanket, and marks on the wall, scratches, for vertical lines, and a single one crossed through them, over, and over, and over again, hundreds, maybe thousands, like someone had kept time, the only way they could. No remains, no body, just the absence of everything that was once human. The case file was closed the following month. Official cause, presumed death, missing person in absentia. Marla Jameson was declared legally dead. No funeral, no headstone, just a placard mailed to her last known address. Her apartment had been rented by 5 tenants since. None stayed longer than a year. One left behind a note, folded into the gap between floorboards. It read, "I dream about her. She's standing in the closet, but the door is nailed shut, and she never blinks." No name, no date. The handwriting didn't match any former tenants, but it looked familiar, too familiar. Today, the south wing remains partially closed. Room 214 is sealed indefinitely. Staff won't speak about it on record. Some won't even walk past it. One nurse, new barely 2 months in, was found crying in the stairwell last week. She said someone had knocked on the inside of the medicine cabinet. One knock, not two, she said when she opened it. Her own reflection looked surprised to see her, like it wasn't expecting to be watched. The tape sits in an evidence locker now. Logged, filed, tagged with a thin yellow sticker. Recovered 2024. Subject Jameson M. But sometimes Varn replays it on her own. Alone. Late. And she doesn't listen to Marla's words anymore. She listens to the quiet, to what surrounds them, to the way silence swells when no one is coming. Because some places, they don't bury secrets. They store them. They build around them. They feed them. And late at night, long after the building shuts its lights, staff say you can still hear a knock from inside the wall behind room 214. Just one. Always one. And just once. Case closed. Armenta General, 2024. Marla Jameson, declared deceased, cause unconfirmed. Recovered objects, ID badge, cassette tape, blueprint fragment, handwritten notes, hairpin. No suspects identified. No confirmed witness. No body recovered. The mirror from room 214 is now in storage. Its surface is covered in black cloth, but beneath it, a single line was carved into the glass, at the very bottom corner, barely visible. If I'm still here, say my name. But no one does. No one dares, because sometimes a voice only needs to be heard once, and sometimes once is more than enough.